Hey everyone, welcome back to Gas Mask 360. You know, today's a special one. We gotta talk about Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Guys, I don't even know where to start with this film. I guess as a disclaimer, I am a pretty big Godzilla fan. Have been since my childhood. And this definitely falls in line with a lot of the goofier films in the series, which is what I know the director has kind of been going for with at least since Godzilla vs. Kong and this one. Trying to go with the more like silly Godzilla films where he's more of a direct, hero of the planet and all that type of stuff. Definitely directly opposed to another Godzilla film that came out not too long ago called Godzilla -1, which is definitely a legitimately great film that just also so happens to be a Godzilla movie. But you're probably wondering, well, Gas Mask 360, why are we, like, if you're going to review a Godzilla film, why don't you review Godzilla -1? And the answer to that question is, I don't know. I feel like I'll just kind of save that for another video idea that I have, where I'll probably just deep dive into my thoughts of just, the whole Godzilla kaiju, stuff at a later time. But for now, I just want to kind of stay focused with Godzilla x Kong. And so, of course, this is the fifth, MonsterVerse film. We started with Godzilla 2014, we had Kong Skull Island, King of the Monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong, and now this one, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. And, most of these films have a pretty decent track record of making the vast majority of their human characters suck. It's just there's a lot of discourse out there depending on who you listen to. It's just like, oh, well, it seems like the Western audience feels like, oh well, the humans are just kind of like whatever, we just want to see big crazy monster action. And there's some people that do. There's a lot of people that can just overlook like a lot of the cringy or bad human dialogue or story or whatever, and it's just like, well, as long as the monster stuff is really awesome, that's all that matters. And yeah, it's like I've kind of subscribed to that myself in terms of being able to really overlook a lot of just the piss poor human characters in a lot of these movies. It's like, unlike a movie like Godzilla -1, where the human characters are the legit heart and soul of that film, and like Godzilla just plays a part in that movie and could have been like anything else. But the Godzilla stuff in that film is also awesome. So where it's like with this film, carries on that nice old tradition of, yeah, most of our human characters are going to be pretty garbage and just really cringe. But the monster stuff is definitely where this movie shines. And even I was, pretty surprised by that. Personally, as far as these MonsterVerse films go, my personal favorite is and probably always will be King of the Monsters. And that just, I feel like that's just because that solely ticked a lot of old school, Godzilla check marks for me, of being just like a long-term fan. That movie just did a lot for me in that regard. But I can definitely confidently say that Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire is now my second favorite of these MonsterVerse films, and it's pretty much all due to the monster stuff. This film definitely leans in to the wackiness and over-the-top spectacle that these films are, and that does a lot for it. And I mean, it's been easy to kind of, feel for Kong a little bit in some of these past films he's been in, but I've like personally never really given a crap about King Kong as a monster. It was always Godzilla for me. But this is like the first, aside from Peter Jackson's King Kong, which I still think is personally the best version of King Kong and just that whole world. This is the first time in these movies that I've like really kind of, been rooting for Kong, so to speak. It's like yeah, I feel like, for as basic as it is, seeing a big sad monkey, just want to find his place, and then try and help these other Kongs he comes across to free them from their servitude and rise up against the evil oppressor monkey. Scar King, he's called. It's pretty fun. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch. And just everything leading up to Kong and Godzilla reuniting, because they had to come together. They couldn't have done this alone. Partially due in part that Scar King, the evil King Kong in this film, just so happens to have his own Godzilla, more or less. He has his own pet giant kaiju lizard monster called Shimu, I think. I might have that wrong, but I'm just gonna call it Shimu for now. It's a bit bigger than Godzilla, but it's on all fours, and it's just like, solid white, and it breathes ice powers everywhere. It like just freezes everything, so that's pretty cool. And so yeah, Scar King has basically tortured that poor creature. It's ever since he found it, to have it under his control and be a part of his army. And yeah, one of the best parts of this film actually is, if you guys have seen the trailers, like you'll know, like there's like a tiny Kong, there's like a little baby Kong, and King Kong, ends up coming across him, and he's like, "Whoa, there's like another me out there? That's wild." So he tries like interact with it, and it ends up attacking him, and he gets ambushed by these other Kongs, and he's kind of like shocked and out of it. He's like, he doesn't know what's going on, and he ends up fighting them off. But like the funniest thing is like, you're like, oh, he's gonna get along with this little baby Kong, and at first that's definitely not the case, because he ends up grabbing that tiny baby Kong and just using him as a weapon to beat the other Kongs with, and just like swinging him around like a rag doll and tossing him. And I'm like, okay, one, I don't know how Tiny Kong is alive. And even if he did survive, you'd think he'd be like so mangled by what King Kong did to him, that he'd be like on the verge of death. But no, Tiny Kong's pretty durable, I guess. But they end up having a fun dynamic, because King Kong ends up making him, take him to where he came from, and they have some fun little antics on the way there to where the other Kongs are at, and you get to see the situation they're in. They were apparently trapped in the Hollow Earth by Godzilla like a long ass time ago, because they tried to like take over the surface world, and so Godzilla somehow just like trapped them underground. So you're like, okay, that's interesting, I guess. It's not too much more explained than that. It doesn't really need to be. But yeah, so at some point they've, Scar King, who's the leader of these other Kongs, who, wants to, basically just conquer the whole world with his Kong army. I guess at one point ended up finding Shimu, this massive ice Godzilla Titan thing, and which is responsible for causing the Ice Age in their world. So that's pretty interesting and cool. Yeah, the humans in this movie. Yeah, there's only really two that I liked. The girl who communicates with sign language and has a relationship with Kong and everything and can talk to him. She's pretty decent, and a new character to this film called Trapper. He definitely serves as a comic relief type character, but he doesn't, like, none of his dialogue or anything really overstays its welcome. Like, he'll say some silly stuff or act a little weird, and he'll just kind of end up, he'll just shut up. Which is the complete opposite of the blogger guy, the conspiracy theory blogger man who can't, shut up about trolls and Discord, and try desperately hard to like be down with the kids and everything, and he was a big reason I didn't like the last movie, Godzilla vs. Kong. I didn't really care for his character in that film. His character might be worse in this one. Like, out of all the characters they could have brought back, I'm not really sure why they brought his character back. But it is what it is. Yeah, the characters basically just exist as expedition dumps and to react and tell you what the monsters are doing, like we're too dumb to figure it out ourselves, even though it's pretty clear as day what's going on. But again, that's pretty, just par for the course. Just your exposition dumps. But yeah, so the girl that can communicate with Kong ends up being she relates to Kong in terms of, like, they both, feel like they don't belong anywhere, and they lost their people, but they both end up finding their people. She finds her tribe that was once long thought lost, that turn out to be basically like the Mothra people. They an old tribe of people in Hollow Earth that worship Mothra and have like this gravity distortion nonsense stuff going on. And So the girl ends up being the only one capable of summoning Mothra, which they need to convince Godzilla to help King Kong fight Scar King and Shimu and his Kong army. And now some people might be a little confused and be like, well, hang on a second, didn't Mothra die in King of the Monsters? And you're correct, Mothra did die in King of the Monsters. But the thing about Mothra is that there's always multiple Mothras. There's always a new Mothra. That's been a thing since Mothra's inception. You'll have Mothra, giant moth, queen of the monsters, as she's referred to as. But she always has like a couple larvae, ready to take her place when the time comes. So I just assume it's something along those lines. It was just another Mothra. But they all share a symbiosis, symbiotic relationship with Godzilla. And so, you have King Kong, who comes to the surface world, our world, to try and recruit Godzilla, even though it's like he knows they have bad blood, and he's probably going to fight them. And they do. They have a fun little rematch in Egypt. Definitely take out some of those pyramids, probably kill some people in the process. But Godzilla gets like a good on full Nelson off of one of the pyramids on King Kong, and that's pretty funny. And then Mothra shows up and is like, hey boys, stop fighting, we got bigger fish to fry, let's go. And Godzilla's like, why didn't you say so? Let's go get them. And so those three team up, go back into Hollow Earth. You get a fun, like, zero gravity section of just this massive battle royale and zero gravity between everybody. And they eventually end up back in our world, going back to the surface, all at like the Scar King, Shimu, King Kong, Godzilla. End up going through portal back to the surface world and end up in Rio. You see the big statue of Jesus up on the cliff overlooking the ocean. And there's a lot of people on that coastline and in that town or city that within like seconds of those four showing up all die. They all just get annihilated. And you're just like, wow, that's pretty crazy, but you also just stop thinking about it because that's not what you're focused on. You're not focused on all those people dying. You're focused on Godzilla and Kong whipping the crap out of Scar King and Shimu. Which is also another fun fight. I think Tiny Kong ends up going there as well eventually to help out. And Mothra stays in Hollow Earth, keeping things under control there with the other Kongs running around. She's like spitting like silk webs at them and like Spider-Man. But yeah, they have this big battle in Rio, and it's so funny because again, Scar King is like controls Shimu, the giant ice titan lizard thing, with like this crystal that like keeps it under his control, and Kong and Tiny Kong kind of figure that out and try and get the crystal away from him and eventually break it, and Godzilla's basically like, hey, if you don't frickin' help us, I'm gonna frickin' kill you. I assume that's what he meant when he looked at Shimu and looked really mad. And so what ends up happening is they beat up Scar King, and Kong's holding Scar up by the neck, and Shimu, as an act of, hey, I'm free now, like, screw you, man, like, freezes him solid like some Sub-Zero stuff. And Kong just like slams him on the ground, and he just busts into like hundreds, thousands of pieces. It's just like a Mortal Kombat fatality, and it's freaking hilarious. And then they go their separate ways. Well, Godzilla, I guess, leaves. Godzilla, there's some scenes in this movie where I guess Godzilla likes to chill and roam now. Like roams his new like nesting ground or whatever, and just like goes to sleep in like their gladiatorial coliseum. I guess he just kind of like teleports in there, because you would think he'd like wreck it getting inside of it, but I guess he doesn't. So he goes back to sleep in the Roman Coliseum, and King Kong, Tiny Kong, and Shimu go back to the Hollow Earth area, to where the other Kongs are still at that didn't leave the fight. And it's like, oh well, I guess Shimu is free and is gonna be like King Kong's like pet now or something, and he's now king. He's now, officially King Kong. He's got his people and everything. And, yeah, it's just overall a pretty just, silly film. Again, monster stuff's, pretty darn good for, these films. And I overall, had a really pretty darn good time. Second favorite film out of all these movies so far. This movie is definitely going to make a lot of money, so there's definitely going to be more. And there's definitely titans and kaiju we haven't tackled yet, unless they just want to keep making original ones. But they could focus on space next. Because we've already established in these films that, there are space alien monsters out there, because King Ghidorah from King of the Monsters was, established as a space alien, as, he should be. So the next movie could have Space Godzilla, it could have Gigan, heck, we could get Hedorah, whatever its fucking name is. Which is, for people that don't know, Hedorah is it's a monster that comes from space, but it feeds off of pollution. And so, like in its original film, like it comes to Earth and it starts feeding off of Earth's pollution and just grows into a giant blob trash monster that Godzilla has to fight. But yeah, I don't know if we're ready to, accept, a giant pollution monster or not. That might be asking for too much. But yeah, there's definitely other things they could do that I'd be interested in seeing. But yeah, again, the real ballsy move would be to, take a lot of the monster ideas from this film and just focus on that. Just do that. No human characters. No dialogue. It's all just how the monsters express themselves, and it's like there'll be a lot, probably some people that just aren't behind that, but those were the best parts of this movie, and so I mean, like, why not? But yeah, guys, I appreciate you stopping by and listen to me ramble about this film. It's been a lot of fun. I hope to, probably, we'll save it. We'll save it for next time. Give you something to look forward to. All right, guys, take care. Peace out.